Hi there, I'm Martha Van Dam, and this is Living Beyond. And today we're going to talk about big emotions and what to do with them when they show up. And by big emotions today, I am not talking about big happy emotions. I'm not talking about when you're out with your friends and everybody's laughing and having a blast and you're just bent over with fun and laughing so hard that your stomach hurts and you're crying. I'm not talking about that kind of emotion. I'm talking about the big emotions that we generally want to run away from or hide from. I'm talking about emotions like fear, terror, anxiousness, nervousness, overwhelm. Like when you might be feeling inadequate or like you have no value. I've got a little list here. Exposed, like you might be feeling exposed, like you might be feeling like a failure, like you might be feeling insignificant, like you've blown it again, like nobody's going to accept you, like there's no respect for you. Those kinds of feelings, those things feel bad, and not just a little bad, they feel a whole lot bad. You have within you some sort of coping mechanism that you usually use when those things show up. What is it? Give it a minute to think. What do I usually do if I'm feeling like I'm going to be exposed or I've been exposed? People know me now. They've seen a failure. They've seen me do something embarrassing. Um, maybe you literally just didn't measure up. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you failed at a project. Maybe you didn't get picked for something like a team or a project at work. Maybe you didn't get a job. um, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, if I say to you, when is a time that you've felt such pain of some kind, you'll be able to pretty quickly come up with an idea of when that is. So I want you to, in your mind, think of a time where you felt some really strong emotion, negative, unpleasant, uncomfortable emotion about something. And then I want you to think, what is your natural go-to? Most of us, in some way or another, try to fight it or try to run away from it, one or the other. But almost always it's some kind of avoidance. We treat it like that really uncomfortable bad feeling is an enemy. And my suggestion to you is, what if it's not? What if that really uncomfortable, horrible, bad feeling that you're feeling, what if it's not an enemy? Uh, what if it's actually a friend? Even if the thing that's happened is really bad. What if you're feeling sad? What if you're from a great loss of some kind? What I want you to think about, what I really want you to think about is what do you habitually do with your feelings when they show up? And then I have a suggestion for you. We're not going to wait long. Here's the suggestion. I'm going to ask you to, in your mind, just try on, just for size, to see how it fits, the idea of what if a difficult feeling that you're struggling with is not an enemy, but is a friend? If it's a friend, what do we do? If it's a friend, we think, well, maybe there's something in this that may be good for me. Maybe my friend has something to show me or to teach me. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is start playing with the idea of what would it look like for me to ask this really unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling, this emotion that I'm having or have had lately. What would it look like to invite that emotion in? What would it look like to bring that emotion, invite that emotion in for tea? Have a sit down and ask it, what do you have for me? What do you have to show me? What do you want to teach me? Why are you here? What is this about? You see how that is so different from running away and fighting? You see how that is, instead of pulling away from the feeling, the emotion, the thought, the feeling, the opposite of that is leaning in. What is this about? Why am I feeling this way? Where did it come from? This is one of my favorite questions to ask, is when is another time I felt this way? That particular question can start you down a path of understanding some of your patterns, understanding why it is that you have some of the emotions, some of the responses that you have. This can take you down a path of learning from that emotion that you're experiencing, instead of feeling like it's something bad that you must get away from and you must make it stop. Actually, what I'm suggesting is you don't want to make it to stop. You want to sit with it. You want to have that tea. And when you want to ask, what are you here for? What do you have to show me? What can I learn from you? What is in this? What could be good for me in this? The value in that can be huge. And I have a short story to tell you. This absolutely happened to a dear friend of mine. She had been in a very bad and abusive marriage. She had 2 little boys. She did get out of the relationship and out of the marriage. But that ex of hers was not a nice person. And he sent someone to stalk her, to follow her, just for the reason of being scary. And so she kept, day after day, she would notice that sitting in front of her house, there would be a car would pull up and would stop, and that there would be a man in the car. This was not her husband, but just someone that he had sent. And he would sit outside the street and he would just sit there, public property, sit there, but it was just to be intimidating. And she was intimidated. She had 2 small children and didn't know how far this was going to go. So for the longest time, or at least for a while, she would draw the curtains and stay inside. Well, finally, one morning, she went to the window. Somehow, some way, she noticed, oh, he's out there again. And she started to pull those curtains. But when she did, she thought, no, I am not going to do that. I am not doing anything wrong. I am not going to stay in this house with the windows, with the curtains closed, and my little boys in here. I'm not going to live my life in hiding. So she left the windows open. God bless her. She marched outside. The man was not paying attention at the moment. He was just sitting in his car. She marched outside, knocked on his window. He looked up and was quite surprised. And she said, what can I do for you? You're out here. Why don't you just come on in and let's have a cup of tea? If there's a reason for you to be out here, come in, let's have a cup of tea and let's talk. Of course, he just said, no. Thank you. And he drove away and she never saw him again. But that illustration is so valuable because it's a picture of what can happen when we look at those emotions head on. They lose their fear factor. We can come to understand that the emotion is there to tell us something. It is there to tell us, if in the case of feeling, perhaps we're feeling fearful of something, the emotion can be there. A piece of it can be to warn us, but it also can be telling us of some inner work that we need to do so that we can learn, as my friend did, I don't have to be afraid of you. I don't have to respond in the way you're expecting me to respond. So when we decide to invite our emotions in for tea, the act of that says, I'm not running, I'm not hiding, and I'm not fighting. I'm now going to learn from you. And I'm going to be stronger and better and wiser and much better suited to move forward because of what I learned from you. In the end, what I want you to understand is your feelings, your emotions are not your enemy. There may be plenty of enemies out there, but it's not your feelings and your emotions. Learn to be friends with your feelings and emotions. Learn to feel them, experience them, lean into them, and ask them, what do you have for me? What are you trying to teach me? What can I learn? How can I be better because of what this is trying to teach me? Lean into those thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Lean into them. Ask where they're from and see what comes out of that. And I would love you to leave a message and let me know what you discovered. I hope that today there are beautiful little nuggets for you. And if they don't come naturally, I hope that you create some. Have a wonderful day. Thanks and bye-bye.